dum. Dum-a-doo-dum-a-doo-be-doo-dum-dum. Oh man, I'm stuck. Hey, step bro, I'm home. No.
Where does the Alabama incest meme come from? Alabama's not even top 10 for the most incest per state. While the history is more deeper than you think, stretching back to the 19th century as Native Americans were pushed further westward. This left room for Americans to settle on new land. This area is called the Appalachian region, stretching from New York to Mississippi. The southern part of the region had low-income whites, since the South had a large amount of land, animals grew free range, while communities lived off the environment by cutting small sections of the forest. This gave the opportunity for the region to be targeted by urban whites in the north for the sake of portraying southern Appalachians as uneducated, poor white Americans.
What are you doing?
Meg, I'm a redneck, which means I am about to do something to you that you will not remember until you're 40. Meg, come back here! I meant sex!
By the time the Civil War ended, the Appalachian region was split by an environment that allowed trains to traverse its rocky terrain. Some Appalachian towns began to flourish economically. For the Appalachian towns that lived in the mountainous terrain, it was the opposite. These communities were more sparse but survived on a method called plain folk agriculture, which had isolated homesteads and free-range pastoralism, which is a fancy way of saying animals living off the land. What's even more ironic is the Alabama stereotype is revived every generation in new ways, new terms, with new ideologies.
Hey, does Joe Biden have a brother? I'm lucky I have two younger brothers. I'm the oldest of three, and I've got a sister who's the love of my life.
However, the stereotype took off in the 70s by a movie called Deliverance, showcasing the stereotypical culture of the Southern Appalachians. This movie was so culturally significant, it was selected to be preserved in the National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. From this movie alone, tourism sparked in Boone County, where the majority of this movie was produced, to the point where tourism became its largest revenue source and rafting became a $20 million industry in Boone County. Although the data for inbreeding in the Appalachian region is very scarce, a published paper from the University of Kentucky showcases the data in some counties that were recorded found evidence of inbreeding. However, the numbers are not extreme enough to perpetuate the Appalachian stereotype, where inbreeding is part of the daily life of Appalachians and its culture. It can be said that it wasn't until the 1950s where the isolated towns were starting to be connected to other parts of America, beginning with Franklin D. Roosevelt Tennessee Valley Authority that provided electricity to these small towns, including them into the grid. Then the interstate highways enacted by President Dwight D. Eisenhower finally giving isolated communities easier access to the greater world. The Appalachian region wasn't the only area targeted. Southern areas such as the Ozarks, a region covering 3 states, have fallen fate like Southern Appalachia, where authors written books about the culture of the Ozarks, which, to simplify, the Alabama stereotype originated as a perception of whites in the North as a vision of what seemed to be the wild, untamed backwoods of America.
No. Hey, boy. No. You look just like a hog. No.
Which made rich whites feel superior to the Southern counterparts. However, in this day of age, that's not the case. The Alabama stereotype is used merely as jokes.
What are you doing, stepbro?
From the movie Deliverance, the stereotype was taken mainstream where it had an impact on American lives, to the point where people were declining jobs in Boone County.
And said that the movie had ruined her life.
I heard stories of people being passed up for jobs because they came from Rabun County.
It's not clear why as recent as 10 years Alabama specifically is used as the epicenter of the stereotype. Probably from Sweet Home Alabama, that showcases the spirit of the South. Nowadays, incest jokes related to this meme is no longer exclusive to whites, but to any race.